All right, it is time to talk Detroit Lions football on the Our Lads Football Network. Finally, it's been a long time coming, Jeff, and that is a really good thing because that means that the Detroit Lions were in it really late into the 2023-24 season. This is something that you've obviously been waiting for a very long time, something we've talked about a lot on this channel over the last few years. And we're finally here, just a week after the Super Bowl. And Jeff, as always, thanks for doing this. It was an incredible season for the Lions.
My pleasure to join you again. And again, being this late in the year does only mean good things for the Detroit Lions, and it's rare. Usually, I'm one of the first people that you talk to because the season just hasn't gone so well.
That is true. Yes,
I'm happy to wait till mid-February before we get to do this because it means that the Lions are where the team has been trying to get to for a very long time. This was the first season in the Super Bowl era they've won more than one playoff game in the same season. That's that's a
awesome.
new normal that I can get used to.
That'll wrap up our first segment now. And just want to remind everybody too that this first segment is at the top needs. That'll be posted on Our Lads, the Our Lads Football YouTube channel. And then we're going to, of course, continue our discussion on Prime Sports Network YouTube channel. And we'll have a way for everybody to easily move from one to the other. So this gives them options. If you're one of those fans that has a short attention span and you just like those little quick hits, well, you got it. If you want to see us bloviate, have some fun, chill out for a nice little discussion, nice little long discussion. That's what we're going to do right now. So let's start, first of all, with the free agency situation. So talk, and you know what, I tell you what we'll do first, though, is I'm going to, let's see, let me get the depth chart up right here. Okay, so there we go. So obviously this is ourlads.com and the latest depth chart for the Detroit Lions. Okay, so let's but before we get into that, again, I want to start with the salary cap situation. Matter of fact, I can even pop up here. Let's see, let me move this over here. This is the over the cap, the latest for the over the cap. And these are all the free agents that they have listed. But before we get into that, are there any logical potential cap casualties or players that should be restructured as far as their contracts?
Yeah. Cap casualty, Tracy Walker, safety, who was a starting safety for a few years, was a healthy scratch down the stretch. He's due, I believe it's $8.5 million. I don't have the cap right in front of me, but if he wants to play in Detroit again, he's going to have to take a lot less money than he was making earlier. He's the most obvious one. As far as like other cuts, there's not a great deal of them, honestly. They did a pretty good job of whittling away what they needed to during the season. And a lot of the guys that they signed as free agents that you might think about, like, oh, they didn't really work out. They're free agents again. It was short-term deals, so they didn't get cooked with dead money, which is a very nice place to be.
Okay. So Walker, yeah, I'm looking at it right now. And Walker, yeah, like you said, his base is about 8. So that's and the debt is over 7. So that's logical. All right. Now, by the way, Cam Sutton's contract is quite large. Is there something they can do about that, or are they kind of stuck there?
They're pretty stuck on that for this year. Okay. And I don't think they want to completely throw him away or disrespect him by saying, if you want to stay here, you need to cut your you don't renegotiate a 3-year deal after 1 year.
Yeah.
Especially when, again, they really don't have any other options right now. Now, maybe if they're able to add a premium corner in free agency, which we'll see, and a first-round draft pick, we'll see. Then maybe they can come to him and like, hey, you're singing for your supper now. But they're not in that state right now. They still need him. So hopefully, the hope is that he will get better in his second season. He started out okay last year, and then teams figured out, oh, we can throw at him too, and they did a lot, and it didn't go well for Detroit.
Okay, then is it too early to think about an extension for McNeil?
No. In fact, that might be going on right now.
Okay.
As we speak. He is due for an extension going into the last year of his contract. He took a big step up this year, and he is entering the final year of his contract in with almost exactly the same numbers that Ed Oliver had in his last year in Buffalo before they gave him his extension, which cost $17 million a year. I don't think Liam's going to get that much, but it's probably fair to say he's going to get close to that. And
Okay.
he was a much improved Liam McNeil. Got his body morphed, switched into a full-time 3 technique, and played very, very well for Detroit. And again, he's only 23 years old, so you're getting him going into the prime years of his career. So he's going to get paid soon.
And it's I don't think there's any chance that I was gonna bring this question up before the season began, and maybe we still have to be patient with this, but this is something we're going to get into. We might as well segue it from the last part of our contract talk to starting to go over the depth chart. And we're going to start with the number one need that you have, which is cornerback and really the defensive backfield. So what a big year for Melifonwu. So now that he's broken out that 1 year, is it too early to be thinking about an extension for him? Is it, let's see him do it again before we start thinking about an extension?
I think there's some of both of that. This is a guy, they found out what he can do well. And it took him a long time. And some of that was the fact that he was injured a lot.
Okay.
And I think that sort of got washed away. But then again, this is also a guy who needed to learn how to play through some injuries. He had a hand injury that cost him several weeks of practice where like other guys are playing in games with it. And he had to make that step on his own on like, I'm never going to be 100% and I have to accept that. And he did that this season. That's a credit to him. They found out that he can go forward really, really well and as an attack safety. He still can't turn and cover very well. So he's a niche player, but he's very good at that niche, and they found that niche, and that's a grateful thing. I kind of think it's one of those where they want to see if it carries over into next year, maybe the first month of the season, and then like, oh, it's still working? Okay, let's give you some money now.
Okay. Well, let's now talk about more of the defensive backfield and that corner position. Well, you know what? Let's stick at safety. So now, hopefully, you got one piece there. You also have Kirby Joseph. So talk a little bit about, were you disappointed? Was the team disappointed or were they satisfied? What was the deal with Kirby Joseph in year 2?
He's kind of been inconsistent up and down. I think a more consistent Kirby Joseph would be good. He's pretty good in coverage, but he has weird lapses. He's generally a decent tackler, but he also has lapses there. It's just one of those where you're never quite sure what Kirby Joseph you're going to get in a game. But overall, they're pretty pleased with him. This is a team. They did just change their safeties coach and defensive backs coach. Brian Duker is now in Miami. That happened just recently, and they brought in Deshae Townsend from the Jaguars as the new defensive passing game coordinator, which is a role that they haven't used. And I'm curious as to how he's going to respond to that coaching because I think Brian Duker did a good job of developing Kirby Joseph into the player that he is now. Maybe now a different voice can take him to another level and iron out the inconsistencies in his game. He's a worthy starting safety,
yes,
especially as a deep single high safety or a deep quarters type safety. He can do that.
Yeah, that there's a lot of hope there, no question, with those two.
Definitely, yeah.
So what about Gardner Johnson? Because he was able to come back and play in the postseason, and he's free agent.
He is a free agent. It's a tough question because he didn't play as well as expected before. He got hurt in week 2, so it's not like he had a big track record.
Okay.
His nonstop being CJGJ, being who he is, CD Deuce, it wore on some people. And I'm not just talking in the media. I'm talking like there were teammates that were kind of like, just find an off switch just for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
That said, Aaron Glenn was the reason why he came to Detroit, why the Lions were interested in him. Aaron Glenn is still a defensive coordinator. He is still a very capable player when he's healthy. I think he's proven that over the years. But again, the injuries are piling up. This is a guy who has not played more than 12 games in a season in any of the last 3 seasons, and it's all injuries, and they're all different injuries. So if they can get him back on a deal where, like last year, they paid him $6.5 million. If he'll take 3.5, maybe 4, with some off, not all of it guaranteed.
Yeah,
I think they'd probably be interested in having him back. If he's trying to parlay, a 3-year, $15 million deal, he's probably going to find that somewhere else. It's not that they wouldn't want him back, and not that they can't control him in terms of like how he fits into the team dynamic, because they did need some edge, and he brought that. I think it was valuable it's for certain players on the team as well. But he's got to really want to be back, I think, and the Lions would have to really want him back for it to happen. I think he's probably going to get a better chance elsewhere.
Yeah, you do wonder whether he's the type of player that might just be better off hanging around teams for a couple of years at a time.
Yeah, and that seems to be his track record. If he's gone, it's his 4th team in as many years.
Yeah,
and you don't have to ask many people why. And again, I say that I like him, and I think he's a good player, but guys like that, they tend to have short shelf lives wherever they go.
Okay, corner, the biggest need on the team, no question about it. Something that the position that the team has really been trying to upgrade, and unsuccessfully now for quite some time. It's very possible we're once again looking at the end of the first round, which is where the Lions will be picking, of course. And the good thing is, of course, they've got that extra 3rd round pick. That extra 3rd round pick is middle of the 3rd round, so that's good, being Minnesota's pick. But still, end of the first round, so they're not going to get necessarily a top 10 corner. But maybe that's a good thing, because the Lions hasn't had a success in that scenario. Yeah. Of course, Branch. That's a perfect example. They get this kid in the 2nd round. And there was a lot of talk last year in the draft about whether Brian Branch was a 1st round top 15 type of player. And I think the way he played, he should have been. So
he should have been. That's right.
Sometimes it's better to just not draft so early in the draft. Just see where the draft board comes to you, and then pick up the pieces and make the right choice. So you think that's looking like where the Lions should target on draft day, first day.
Yeah, I would hope that one of their first 2 picks will be a cornerback in this draft. And the cornerback draft, I don't like it as well as a lot of people do, but I do think that there's guys that would certainly make a fit. I would have loved Quinyon Mitchell. He's going to be long gone, unfortunately.
True. Yes.
I would love Terrion Arnold. He's going to be long gone, unfortunately. But guys like Nate Wiggins, Kool-Aid McKinstry fits into that bill some.
Yeah, you never know.
There's some guys that'll be down in that range that you can look at. 2nd round, 3rd round. You're looking at a little bit lower caliber, but there's still some talent in this draft in that range too. So I'm comfortable that they will be able to get a guy who can compete to start right away in that draft with first couple picks. And as Brad Holmes, the general manager, did last year with Brian Branch, he's really, really good at understanding where players are going to go and how the draft's going to flow. And when it doesn't go, remember, this is a guy team. Everybody thought that they were going to take Devon Witherspoon at the number 6 overall pick. Well, Seattle screwed that up because they took him at number 5. He didn't panic and like rush pick. He traded back and got extra picks. And that extra pick, by the way, became Sam Laporta, who just had the greatest rookie tight end season ever. So we feel pretty good about the ability of Brad Holmes, the general manager, to surf around the draft and find what he needs.
Yeah. Okay. So as far as the situation then at corner, and let's keep in mind, we'll have to add in the fact that there are 3 free agents right now. So it's Vildor, Mosley, and Harris. So what's up now? Do you think the team wants and should re-sign any of these guys?
I think Vildor deserves to come back as like the number 5 cornerback. This is a guy who started in the playoffs because between injuries and ineffectiveness, that he was the best option. He shouldn't be the best option, but if he wants to come back, he's not awful. Like if you're looking at number 4, number 5 cornerback on the outside who can play on special teams and he's good on special teams, yeah, get him back. But beyond that, like my Will Harris is a tough one because the team absolutely loves him because he can play every spot in the secondary. My argument is he doesn't play any of them well, but they sure seem to like him. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if he's back. But I don't know.
On the cheap. Yeah.
Wouldn't be a move that I would make, but
still not going to break the bank though. So
yeah.
Okay. All right. So either way, the free agency process is going to tell us a lot about what's left over. But either way, it definitely looks like a first or a second round draft pick at corner looks like in the cards for Detroit. Let's go to linebacker. And so most of the time it's two linebackers. Campbell is just what? I was a rookie, seemed to play well enough. He knows his role. He basically has one role that he does very well, and that's it. So are they just, especially with Rodriguez there too, they just all come back, same guys, and they don't really feel a need at this point to upgrade?
Yeah, their top four are all coming back. And I do think that Jack Campbell's going to get better with another year of seasoning, an off season in the program where he's not trying to have everything thrown at him all the time. Alex Anzalone was great when he was healthy. About halfway through the season, if I had to vote on the most improved player, he would have gotten my vote. Now, he got hurt down the stretch and didn't play as well, but he's the spiritual leader of the defense and has a very good understanding of how to communicate what Aaron Glenn wants as a coach into the rest of the players on the field. So that adds value to his role. I think the top four are all coming back, and I think we're pretty good with that. Jalen Reeves-Maben now all pro as a special teamer. He also played pretty well at linebacker in limited doses, 5 to 10 snaps a game. So if he comes back, they really don't need anybody at linebacker then. And this is a team, like last year, they found Trevor Nowaski, an undrafted free agent out of Saginaw Valley State. He played well enough in the preseason and showed enough in camp that they kept him and protected him once by moving him from the practice squad to the active roster. They actually had to cut him because they just had a numbers crunch and they had so many linebackers. He could be starting for the Cardinals next year. So that tells you where the lines are really good at linebacker. And it feels very strange to say that because for years and years and years and years, it was a just god-awful hellhole of a position for Detroit. When Jared Davis was your best linebacker over the course of probably 15 seasons, it was bad. DeAndre Levy had his nice little run there before he got bit by a sloth or whatever happened that made him fall off the cliff. But that's an urban legend Detroit media thing. Nobody actually knows if it's true or not, but apparently he liked to do some weird things in the offseason, and that came out. But they're good at linebacker. This certainly enough where they can get by with maybe a 7th round pick or a bargain basement free agent who will vacillate. The NFL doesn't have the two-way contracts like the NBA does between the G League and the NFL. I wish they did, because that would be a perfect spot for the linebacker on this team as the number 5 or number 6 linebacker. A guy who can float between the practice squad and the active roster, because that's really all they need.
So bottom line is just resign Reeves-Maben, and that's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Done.
Defensive line. And let's talk first of all about the dirty positions, the dirty spots, not the sexy spots. So let's talk about the big year for McNeil and the type of player he's becoming, because the rest of the line looks like it's solid at best, but McNeil really is the linchpin there, and
absolutely,
he should be getting a nice new contract.
Yeah, he fits in the Ed Oliver mold of a guy who is ascending into being something better than he has been in the past, and he'll get paid for that. Benito Jones, solid in 20 to 33% of the snaps. If you're playing him more than that, you're probably asking a little too much. Tyson Alualu, they picked up off the street late in the season, promoted him from the practice squad a couple times, and then signed him. He's getting up there. I mean, this guy was in the 2010 draft, I believe it was. So you're looking at you're not looking at anybody who's a full-time player there. Broderick Martin, their 3rd round pick from last year, healthy scratch almost every game this year. They are really hopeful that he will develop into something. And he's said all the right things. He's done all the right things. This guy, he's actually too long to play on the inside, and he's got to learn how to shorten himself up. Got super long arms, high cut guy for being 330 some pounds. He's got to learn to keep his pads down, learn how to sink his weight a little bit. He did show some things in practices, but just not enough to get on the field. So they have an option there, and they took him as a developmental type prospect. So you're looking at a guy who's going to hopefully crack the rotation next year. But they could use somebody else in there, whether it's a veteran or a space eating guy to share that role with Benito Jones too, because Martin, for despite the fact that he's that big, much more of a Lee McNeil type backup than he is the nose tackle, that's going to stuff gaps and things like that. So they've got a need there for sure.
So you think they will? More than likely, you think they'll resign Jones as long as it's a nice, cheap option, and then expect Martin to take over half of those snaps.
That would be nice. And Levi Onwuzurike is there too, entering the last year of his deal. Seldom used, often hurt. There's no sense in getting rid of him, but he's got to show a little bit more if he wants to get more in the rotation. But he knows the system. He has worked incredibly hard. This is a guy who had fusion surgery in his back.
Yeah.
And came back from it. So you want to reward
wasn't
that.
it amazing enough that he actually participated in 164 snaps?
Yes, absolutely. And my hand is off to him because I wrote him off. I said, there's no way that guy's coming back. And he did. So good for him. But that's a guy that you want to root for, but you also don't want to depend on, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. So pretty much, if they re-sign Jones, they still, though, would have to add another player at some point, which is why you have this as your fourth team need heading into the offseason. And we can kind of, include Paschal and Kaminsky in there as well. But those guys are solid players. I mean, Paschal obviously is younger. Nothing to touch there, right? It's just okay. Right, they're back next year, and that's going to help. And we're very happy.
Yeah, Kaminsky didn't have the year that we wanted him to. He was very good in 2022. He kind of fell back a little bit in 2023. But this is a guy who's playing. He's playing your three technique a lot at 282 pounds. Paschal is playing at 270 and played inside a lot. So there's. It would be nicer if they had more perimeter-oriented roles. Now, Kaminsky does play really well when Hutchinson comes down onto the line and puts his hand in the dirt and has Kaminsky next to him. That's when Aiden Hutchinson is at his best. But you'd want to get more out of Kaminsky from that too. He's got something to prove this offseason. He's a guy that could wind up being moved in one fashion or another if the Lions don't see the long-term upside with him anymore.
Are the Lions playing? Do they play most of the time with a 4-man front?
They do, and they actually played some legitimate 4-3 last year. And this was a team that, if you go back to the 2021, they had 11 snaps that entire season where they had 3 linebackers on the field. They would have 11 per game. I don't know that for sure, but it felt like around that much, especially when Jack Campbell was playing more later in the season, where we have some linebackers. Our linebackers are better than our line, so we're going to play the linebackers more. They did a few 5-man fronts. They did a few 3-man fronts. Aaron Glenn is not afraid to mix it up and try to get more of his better players on the field. But I do think that this is a Bill Parcells guy. He played for Bill Parcells back in the day.
Yeah,
a Ryan brother. They want to get the linemen going, and so I think that's going to be more of an emphasis there.
Okay, and then your third need, and again, pretty equal to your fourth need, is in the same area, and that is edge, because we know how great Hutchinson is and has become. But Aquara, one Aquara's out, the other maybe out as well.
He's gone now too. His contract voided last Friday. So,
and you don't think they'll resign him then? So, in that situation. That is, no matter what happens with Houston's health, the fact is this team needs another bona fide edge rusher.
Absolutely. And the good thing is there's some available in free agency, and Josh Paschal can play. He's a good player, but he's a guy that you're never sure because he's had so many injury and health issues over the years that you would probably like to have somebody a little bit more dynamic than him.
Yeah.
But if he's your third or 3A, 3B type, if they split that up, you're in pretty good shape. But right now he's a peg above that. So they would like to get somebody there. And again, James Houston is a big wild card. The brilliant second half of his rookie season, you think back, like it was really easy to see why he got cut as a fifth-round pick before that. And it was easy to see why he played his way out of the starting role last summer too, because it's hard because you do see the potential and he works very hard at it, but there are things that he's really got to get a lot better at. Otherwise, he's just going to be a guy that you can only play on third and long, and they need more than that. And now maybe he can step his game up and do that this offseason. I hope so, because he's a good dude, and he was very effective at the end of his rookie season. But beyond that, he's been tough to advocate for. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, he's got a little tweener in him too that you wonder about. Does the scheme fit him? And so you never know because he's got talent, and you just hope it can blossom here. Okay, so edge rusher definitely, and if we don't see a big edge rusher, because if they're out there, they're going to command some pretty big salary cap room. But if not, if there's no big time edge rushers added in free agency, we will definitely see one added early in the draft.
Oh yeah, and that could be a first round pick. Darius Robinson out of Missouri is, as we're recording this in mid-February, is the sort of like du jour pick that a lot of people have latched onto after the Senior Bowl. Yes. And he'd fit. He'd be good. Yeah. I'm not sure I'd rate him that high, but it wouldn't bother me.
Once you get to the bottom of the first round, anything can happen.
For sure. And they can move up, they can move back. It seems like it's not the greatest year to need a pass rusher in the draft, but they don't need the alpha. They got that in Aiden Hutchinson. I think that's very important.
Yes.
So, if you can get a guy like Chop Robinson later, I would not take him in the first round, but somebody might. I think he's going to get evaluated there. Even like the later, like day two, like Adisa Isaac as his teammate in Penn State, I think he might wind up being a better NFL player than Chop Robinson. There's guys there that you can find, and the Lions have done a pretty good job of finding guys on day two who can contribute right away and greatly exceed what a lot of draft analysts, myself included, think of the players. So you got to give them some credit on that.
Okay, now let's talk about the offense and move on over to quarterback position. I'm just going to ask about so far. I mean, the contract situation with Goff. How is that right now?
He is signed through 2024 at a reasonable rate. They have his franchise tag rights if they want to do that after 2024 to control it for another season. He could get an extension this offseason. He could be a guy who's happy going into the season, letting it play out. If he signs the extension this year, salary cap's going up. If he plays the way he did in 2023 in 2024 and the Lions win, if he signed for $50 million per season as a just ballpark where he probably would be asking this offseason, if he does what he did last year, next year, he lowballed himself. And so there's options there. He doesn't talk contract. There are a bunch of different schools of thought, and we'll wind up seeing which one's right on it. But he's good, certainly through the next two seasons, even if they have to franchise tag him for one of those years. And I don't think he would be unamenable to that, is my somewhat educated read on that. Wink, wink.
Okay. Hooker, what's the deal with Hooker? He's the man now. He's clearly the number 2 guy moving forward.
100%.
And that's it. They're going to go Goff, Hooker.
Absolutely. Teddy Bridgewater, God bless him. Good luck at Miami Northwestern High School, buddy, because you're a great guy. And I hope it works out for him at the high school level. Okay.
And the running back situation. We know they've got the top 2 boys. So the rest of the crop are free agents. Is that just going to be handled, you would think, cheaply? But the question then becomes, the real question is do they just bring back like a Craig Reynolds and is on him at night, or do they try to find someone they feel can even be a better upgrade on the cheap somewhere else?
So Craig Reynolds should be back. I believe he's a restricted free agent. They like him. He fits great as number 3. He also can return kicks. He's a good special teams player. So he certainly feels like he could be back. Bam Knight, who knows what's going on there? We saw him for, I think, 7 days before he got hurt in training camp. So they could use a speed guy, a guy who could catch passes out of the backfield. Not that Craig and David Montgomery can't, but a guy who's more of a direct backup to what Jahmyr Gibbs offers as a speed back who can catch passes out of the backfield. That guy doesn't really sit there right now, but that, again, you're looking at a backup running back in a market where the supply greatly exceeds the demand. So I don't think that you're going to be looking at them drafting it. If they do, it's a 7th round pick. Could be a street free agent that they sign right afterwards. Sort of the way Craig Reynolds. I don't think they're going to emphasize taking anything there. They made their splash last offseason, and boy, howdy did it work. It worked great.
Absolutely. And by the way, as a Jet fan, I thought Knight definitely showed that he will be a running back in this league, that he will be a nice complement back, somebody that if there's an injury, he can come in and spell that back, and he could definitely be a number 3 back. So, yeah, if he's healthy, I see no reason to think that the Lions just can't say, yeah, it's your job as long as you can stay healthy.
Yeah, so. And I think that's probably where they're at with it. And again, they're good at 1 and 2. No need to stress anything there.
Yeah, and Knight also has the ability to return kicks if need be.
He does.
I'm not sure if how is the kick return situation for Detroit right now?
Well, it was Khalif Raymond. He got hurt, so there is a variable there. Craig Reynolds took it over. Vildor and Khalil Hodges actually did a lot of that too. So
okay. All right. Tight end, 3 free agents. Brock Wright, the number 2 tight end. Do they just re-sign him? I can't imagine he's going to command much on the market, but do they just re-sign him and maybe even re-sign the whole group of them? Or do they feel Mitchell is ready to take over the number 2 role?
I think you're going to see Mitchell and Wright back as the 2 tight ends behind Sam Laporta. They've done a pretty good job of establishing themselves. Mitchell, if we can ever stay healthy, he did show real growth as a run blocker last offseason. 2022, his rookie season, he was the NFL leader. He caught every pass thrown to him. He had the most targets of any player that caught every pass thrown to him. It was 11. So it's not like he's like a big deal, but they like him. 5th round pick out of Virginia Tech. If he can stay healthy, he'll be the number 3. Brock Wright got hurt. They did kind of miss him. They, messed around. They did sign Zach Ertz as a emergency option for the postseason. He wound up not getting on the field, wasn't healthy enough, but I could see a world where he's back as sort of a veteran mentor for Sam Laporta that never plays and is happy, collecting a paycheck and being inactive every week.
Yeah, it's interesting with Mitchell because when he came into the league, I always imagined he was more of a receiver than a blocker.
He was, and he did get better at it. He's a big guy, though, big frame, has worked very well. Tight ends coach Steve Heiden deserves a tip of the cap there. He did a really good job in his first season in Detroit, and it will continue to do so.
All right, in the last skill position at wide receiver. So Peoples-Jones and Reynolds are free agents. Matter of fact, Reynolds was number 2 on the team in snaps, of course. So it's just not outside observers might be, oh, yeah, they can move on from him. But I don't think most outside observers knew how much he played and what a piece of the puzzle he was for that unit. But still, who knows what he's going to be looking for and what he might be able to get. And we saw a little bit of growth in Jamison Williams. It looks like it's there. And one more offseason, if he can stay healthy, you never know what he could blossom into finally in 2024. But there are some depth concerns, though. So how do you think the Lions are going to handle that?
Yeah, so you got Amon-Ra St. Brown as your 1. I do think that J-Mo is going to step up, and they're going to expect him to be number 2 next year. And Josh Reynolds largely filled that role this year. Reynolds is a tough one because Jared Goff loves him. from their days in Los Angeles. And Reynolds has the knowledge of, remember, he signed with the Tennessee Titans as a free agent when he left the Rams, and it didn't work at all for either side. Detroit made the deal to come get him, and he's been very good now. Had two really, really bad drops in the playoffs.
Oh, yes.
And there are a lot of fans who will not forgive that. And I'm not gonna blame him for that, because if Josh Reynolds catches that one ball on third down, the Lions are playing in the Super Bowl. No doubt about it. None. They won that game if Josh Reynolds catches that ball.
Yeah.
I don't want to say it's a Jackie Smith situation, but it might be a Jackie Smith situation for older folks who know. I know you know who that is, Greg. Yes. But people under 35 probably have no who. Yeah. Google them because it could be that sort of situation.
Or check out that great series that the NFL puts together on the Super Bowl each year. Yeah. So
Khalif Raymond is a very good number 4 receiver when he's healthy, but he got hurt. Don't know on his injury timeline, but I would expect him to be back. And he is pound for pound probably the best blocking wide receiver in the league. Now, you say that because he weighs about 175 pounds. He is ridiculously strong and tenacious and also lightning fast, and as it offers return ability. He will get on the field, but probably not higher than the number 4 receiver. Antoine Green, 7th round rookie last year, height, weight, speed prospect, didn't do a lot, wasn't asked to do a lot, and quite frankly, wasn't given a chance to do a lot. So there's a chance that he will make a step this offseason. Antoine Randall L has proven himself to be a pretty darn effective wide receivers coach. So another offseason will probably do wonders for Antoine Green, so you can't discount him. But especially if Josh Reynolds leaves, they do need that number 2, 3 receiver, a possession type receiver who can sit in a zone, who can reliably catch a pass. You know, that's 3rd and 7, and he will get 7.5 yards on the route just to be safe and catch the ball. They need that guy, and that's what Josh Reynolds has been. And even if Josh Reynolds is back, a bigger receiver that can sort of wall off a man coverage or make a big catch radius in the zone over the middle, they could use a guy like that. And I don't think that they have anybody else on the roster who can really do that. So whether it's draft, middle round pick, late round pick, or a guy like Noah Brown is a free agent. I know he doesn't get people excited, but that's kind of the guy that they need.
Well, was that partly why they made the trade for Peoples-Jones? Did they want to just take?
Thank you. I didn't mean to short shift him because he didn't get a great deal of opportunity as much as I think we all thought he would. Maybe that'll happen this offseason because they certainly did not dislike him. But is the plan, do you bring both of those guys back and you keep the status quo, or do you want someone who offers a little bit more of something?
Yeah.
DPJ, and I was frankly surprised they didn't try him more as a return man. And
that's
maybe
true.
Maybe that's an indicator that they're not going to go back with him. I don't know. I don't know what their plans are with him. I wouldn't be opposed to bringing him back. And he served his role, but you probably want to get a little bit higher end there for your reserves. But again, maybe Antoine Green can be that guy too. It's very questionable what happens there. And not in a negative way. I don't mean that questionable in a negative way. It's just like they have a lot of options. It's sort of which way do they go?
Yeah, I mean, Peoples-Jones was one who he got off to a slow start with the Browns, but again, they were having a whole bunch of weird crap happening as they always do, especially at the quarterback position. But Baker was young, and so was Jones.
Baker didn't like him.
You
can say that 100% for certain.
Yeah. So, but then he started. You could notice. All right, well, now he's healthier. He's also starting to play more. It looks like he's ready. And then the next year came. And it just didn't happen. And then he gets traded. And it's like, so I don't know. There might be something going on there that we just don't know about. There's a lot of stuff that goes on that we don't know about that coaches know regarding certain players. So, but we know he's talented. What did they give up for him?
6th round pick. So it wasn't anything big. He's super, super smart. If you've ever interviewed him, you can tell that he comes from a very educated family and presents himself. And went to Michigan and actually went to class at Michigan, which is a very fine academic institution. He represents the Wolverine program and university very well. The Lions tend to like guys like that. One of the things that they boasted about when they signed Cam Sutton was he was actually his high school class valedictorian. That meant something to them. They do, as we spin this forward, they're very picky about the types of players that they want. They have a very good idea of who can't fit in with them. He does fit in with what they want in players, so that he's got that feather in his cap.
And you haven't heard anything, though, about him?
No, nothing.
Okay. So anything's
nothing
possible.
Either way.
Yeah. So we'll see how it goes. And obviously, that's the thing. Free agency. We'll find out whether or not they re-sign either one or both, but we'll find out. Regarding Josh Reynolds, to me, it's like that situation that you see happen when you have a field goal kicker. He could have a really good season, but if he misses the critical kick in the postseason and he's a free agent,
yeah,
you can't have him back. No matter how good he was in the regular season, if he does that in the postseason, he has to go. And that's what you do wonder about Josh Reynolds. It's a different position, of course. We've seen a lot of other players fail and then come back, but he's a free agent. That's the trick there. And who knows? Maybe he does price himself to a point where Detroit just goes almost like an excuse. Oh, well, he wants that much. Yeah, we can afford that.
Yeah.
But we'll
certainly plausible. Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Okay. And next up, and we'll wrap up with the offensive line. So 5 free agents along the offensive line, which is a big reason you have 2 of your top 5 needs. Offensive tackle is your 5th overall need, and offensive guard / backup center, maybe future center, is at number 2. Now the tackle will start there, and that's really not because the starters. We know the starters are among the best combo bookends in the entire league. There's nothing. If something happens to either one of them, there's nothing backing them up.
Yeah, quite literally nothing. there's 2 on the depth chart. That's it. So they got to get somebody in there. Yeah.
Okay.
Now,
and then,
could they bring Matt Nelson back? Maybe. Could Colby Sorsdal switch back? So he was a tackle. They moved him inside the guard, tried to trade him there. He did actually play some tackle last season in a pinch, but I kind of think that their plan is for having him stay at guard. So they're and Coyote Ashika can play tackle, maybe. Kind of did in Philly. I don't know. He's a restricted free agent, and I do think that he's a loyal soldier with some positional versatility. Much as I said about Will Harris, I'm not sure that he plays any of those positions well, but he can at least play them in a pinch and practice there, and he knows the system, so maybe he'll be back, probably, but hopefully not. I'm hopeful that he's one of those guys that you bring back in the offseason and he doesn't make it and he happily goes on the practice squad. That would be the optimal situation for him.
Okay, so interior. Now, Jackson, he's been solid. We know that. You got Vaitai, and he's got some really good flexibility. He can play multiple positions. That's always called for. Glasgow, we talked about him before the season. Would a change of scenery coming back to Detroit? What would that do? Well, it seemed to do pretty well, but now he's a free agent, of course. So how do you see this being handled? Let's talk center let's talk guard. Well, might as well, since Glasgow could play center, let's also talk a little bit about that, because you mentioned to me on the first segment, which is not on Prime Sports Network. Just to remind everybody, we did about a 5 to 7 minute segment where we just went, really fast, top 5 needs. You can get that at our lads YouTube channel, where you mentioned Ragno and his potential retirement in the future, and something that he's been thinking about since his injury. So talk a little bit more about that as well.
Yeah. So Ragno doesn't practice. He was in the playoff playing with like head, shoulders, knees, and toes, except it was back instead of shoulders. All those injuries. He has an inoperable chronic toe problem. We haven't heard exactly. It sounds like it's the exact same one that made both Jack Lambert and Patrick Willis retire early in their careers.
Wow.
And when you're 305 pounds, the way Frank Ragnow is, that's stressing that toe a lot. He is coming back. He is phenomenal as a center. He is as good as any center in the league. But there's questions about that, and they do not have a backup. Graham Glasgow would be his backup. When you move Glasgow into the center role when Ragnow couldn't play, that shuffled your guards around, and that didn't work as well. Jonah Jackson's an interesting one because he was a Pro Bowler and a worthy one in 2022. Didn't play as well in 2023, then got hurt, came back and really didn't play well. It's up to him how much he's asking for if he'll be back or not. Because I do think that they would be amenable to having him back, but they're not going to pay him $10 million a year, which was what was being talked about last offseason as a potential extension for him. I don't think that's going to be anywhere near there. So if he's asking for a lot, I don't think he'll be back. He might not be back anyways. He might just want to be like, you know what? I've enjoyed my time there, but I think I can make more money and get more prominence elsewhere. Because this is when you're playing Taylor Deckers to your left, Frank Ragnow's to your right, Penei Sewell's over on the other side. You're not going to get any recognition just by the function of that.
Yeah,
and he might want more than that. And if he does, he'll probably need to go somewhere else to get that.
And I think he'll get it because
I do too. Because he is a good player. He just had he had a really bad time to have the worst part of stretch of his career. And again, a lot of it was injury related. He broke his wrist, and they had the cast on such that he couldn't hold. Like he was physically incapable of holding. And everybody holds. Well, when you can't hold, it shows up. And that's unfortunate for him. But he's a good guy, and they wouldn't be opposed to having him back. But I think of the three guards that you had there with Glasgow, Jackson, and Vaitai, I think only Glasgow's coming back. I think Vaitai's going to retire with all the injuries that he's had. The back injuries just keep mounting up. Great guy. Turned himself into being a pretty good right guard after he fizzled miserably at right tackle when he first came to Detroit. You know, it's a great way for him to go off. The only way he would be back, and this is not unimportant, he is Penei Sewell's sounding board. He is like his older brother.
Okay.
And in the Samoan culture and Polynesian culture, that's not something to be taken lightly.
Yeah.
So I almost wonder if he could come back as like an assistant line coach or an offensive, something like that, because he's a very smart guy too, and worked his way into the good graces of the Lions fans. And it wasn't easy to do that with the way that he started. So I don't think he'll be back playing, but maybe he'll stick around the building. That'd be nice. The way Don Muehlbach did as a long snapper.
So you really do feel like pretty confident he's going to retire?
Definitely, yeah.
Okay.
That could be announced by the time this goes live, for all we know.
All right. So that's important to note. And then Jackson, the reason I said I think he's going to get a good deal offer, because it's just the state of the game right now. Yeah. Offensive linemen are just needed everywhere. Everybody needs offensive linemen, and they're willing to overpay to get it. And so you're going to get these linemen know it. They're going to get paid somewhere else a lot more than they would where they're at if that team just does not have the cap space and knows the type of player that they have. So Glasgow, so you think though that even though Glasgow could play center, he's also up there in age, but they should be looking for a guard, or should they be looking for a center that can start off as a guard and then eventually maybe be the guy that replaces Ragnow if he indeed has to retire?
Yeah, and that would be great. Jackson Powers Johnson from Oregon would be fantastic as the first round pick, and that I don't think he'll be there, but he that's the mold that you're looking for. If you're looking for agency, a guy like Evan Brown, who, by the way, was that role in Detroit for 2 years.
Yeah,
he's free agent again. Wouldn't shock me if he came back. Okay. So there's options there, but it's just going to be change, and hopefully it's for the positive, because again, nothing on this offense happens without the offensive line being good. Yes. If they're not good, Jared Goff gets diminished. The run game gets diminished. The passing game gets diminished because they can't do the complex movement and intricate route combinations they do. because Goff wouldn't have the time to make it happen. So they have to have a good offensive line for Ben Johnson's offense to work. And by the way, that's true wherever he would go if he eventually leaves as a head coach somewhere. His offense does not work without a good offensive, not even a great offensive line. I would put it that way, and he knows that. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why he's back.
Yeah, the Lions put together, as you know, one of the premier offensive lines in the industry a couple of years ago, and they have to keep that going. They have to. That's their identity.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's why you do have that as one of your primary needs. And really 2 out of the 5 makes it really important. So we'll take a look at that at the end of the first round. First things first, free agency. So by the way, is there a player so far in free agency out there? You've named a couple of guys, but is there somebody you've heard whispers about this guy or that guy? Not necessarily offensive line. We've kind of concluded this part of the segment, but just in general, is there anybody whispers, hey, you know what, this could be a good fit in Detroit?
Keep an eye on Chidobe Awuzie as a cornerback. Not probably the sexiest pick, but he fits the profile of what the Lions have liked. One of the things that Brad Holmes has done as a GM, he loves to take chances on guys that are coming off of injury. Now, Awuzie, his injury was 2022, and he played through 2023 and didn't play all that well. Sort of the way that Graham Glasgow was. He was injured in 2021, didn't play very well in 2022. They got him from Denver cheaper than they would have gotten him had he been healthy, and he wound up proving so. Awuzie is sort of on that same timeline. He's an outside corner. He can play man. He can press. He's a pretty good run defender most of the time. Smart guy, fairly scheme diverse. The Lions do mix in zone, and I think you might see them mix in more zone as they go forward. So he's a guy that birdies might have been chirping about that a little bit. But again, it's early. and again, with the offseason starting so late for Detroit, even like the plugged in internal sources aren't as plugged in as they normally are at this time of year yet.
Okay.
So I've bugged people, and they have legitimately told me, I really don't know, Jeff. Like I know I normally know things at this point because we were playing something like we're not there yet. We're just not. So, but they're closing in on it quick. That's actually one of the things that we're curious about this offseason is, can they handle the sort of accelerated process? Dan Campbell and the coaching staff, they're very involved in the draft process. Dan didn't watch a college football game until last week.
Yeah.
He just didn't have time because he had more important things going on. So we'll see how that's an X factor for this offseason that none of us can predict on how it's going to play out.
And by the way, speaking of Ben Johnson, wow, I mean, another year. And he returns to the Lions. So fans obviously ecstatic about that. Why do you think that is? Why do you think he's still in Detroit?
I think some of it was that he's very happy here. He loves working with Jared Goff. He loves working under Dan Campbell. I think some of it is the fact that he's not one of those guys who defines himself as, I've got to keep climbing. He might be at the ladder rung that he wants to stay at. And that sounds weird because everybody's always, you got to be. He might not be that kind of guy. He's different. It's a guy who was a math major in college. He sees things differently. He might be where he wants to be, career-wise. And he didn't need to go fail as a head coach to find that out in the way that a Jim Schwartz or a Steve Spagnuolo did, or Adam Gase. I hate to put him in anything like that, but there are some guys who just know that they're really good coordinators. He might be one of those guys. I also don't think that he liked how presumptive Washington was that he was going to join them. I think that might have rubbed him the wrong way a little bit.
Interesting. So, well, we'll see how it goes because if
we will
do another,
we're glad to have him back. He does some things that annoy me. He gets way too cute at times with his play calls. He has one bad quarter every game, and it's almost always the third quarter. But man, if you watch like what he does schematically, it's gorgeous, and it fits the personnel so perfectly that you're gonna live with him making some weird play sequences and running out of the shotgun on 2nd and 11 a lot. But we're in good hands offensively, absolutely, with Ben Johnson. We're thrilled to have him back.
Yeah. And the obvious one that really sticks out, of course, is the play call at the end of the game to run the ball, and then the timeout.
Yeah, that was bad decision. Again, everybody has their flaws. His is understanding when to call what at times. Again, there are some times where he's great at it too. I can't take that away from him, but there are times where like, what? Like, why are we doing like it's 3rd and 1? Why are we running like trips and then they all relocate on the other side and your back flares out and you're pressed up against the why is Penei Sewell, the right tackle, blocking the guy to the left of Taylor Decker, and the left guard is going out and blocking the guy Penei Sewell was supposed to be blocking? And oh, by the way, that guy's a twitchy speed rusher, and you can't possibly expect it. Like, he has unrealistic expectations for his play designs at times, but damn, it's fun too.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, everybody's going to look, you're going to be, somebody has to be held accountable, or somebody they got to point the finger at someone when you don't win. And I don't think anybody watching that Detroit San Francisco game felt that Detroit wasn't maybe the better team, because I certainly did.
I agree.
But they just weren't at that stage. That's why it's very rare that you just pop into the postseason and run your way to the Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl. It just does not happen. Yeah. Take stages, and the Lions have now set them up. That's it. They've had their experience. They don't need to get to the Super Bowl, lose, and then they're ready. Now they're ready.
They are ready.
Yeah. And that's what sort of awesome season it was. But again, this is what the fun is about the NFL. And Campbell said it in the press conference. This isn't going to be the team we're going to, basically is what he was saying. This isn't going to be the same team. It changes. These guys, not the same guys that are going to be with us next year. So every year's different. There's a big offseason for the Lions. And I look forward to the opportunity, of course, to talk to you. Hopefully, maybe we'll get a chance right after the draft, if anything huge happens for whatever reason before that. But we'll definitely look forward to talking to you after the draft, because then we'll be able to kind of, put a little bow tie on the majority of the moves that were made this offseason for Detroit.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime you need me, Greg, I'm good for it.
And of course, you can check out Jeff on the Detroit Lions podcast on YouTube and the Lions Wire. The lionswire.com website. So we'll talk more Detroit Lions football here on the All Lads Football Network, here at Prime Sports Network real soon. Appreciate it, Jeff, as always. And we'll see you guys later next time.